Cornish holiday kitchen. Yeah, that's right, a little bit of a change of scene, having a bit of a Cornish getaway, as I'm like, seems most people are, you know, all staying within the UK, enjoying the beauty. So today I thought we'd get into the autumnal spirit of things, and I'm doing something with pumpkin, which has come from my mother's garden all the way to Cornwall, very well travelled. And I'm going to make a pumpkin sourdough. So I have just done my regular sourdough recipe that I do, so I'm sure a lot of you have got into your sourdough during lockdown, you know all about your starter baby and nourishing it. So you'll all have your own methods. I'm not going to go into the full shebang of sourdough, we'll save that for another time. But basically I made my leaven this morning, and then I made my mix, and I did my orchardise, and then I added my salt, and then I left it for half an hour, and I did one turn, and now I've left it for another half an hour, and I'm going to add in my mashed pumpkin. So this I just cut into quite large chunks and roasted it in the oven quite low, around 165, and then mashed it up. So I'm going to add it in at this point, and this is the point where I usually add any extras that I am going to add. For example, any kind of porridge or seeds or any kind of flavours that you like. That is kind of the beauty of when you've got your basic sourdough mix down, you can start to get a bit more experimental and add bits in, like anything you fancy really, some herbs, some seeds, some pumpkin. So I'm just going to add this in bit by bit. I'm just going to smooth it on top of my dough. I've never done this before, so it might go terribly wrong, but we don't know until we try. So I'm just popping that in. I've also got some toasted pumpkin seeds, because that seemed like a good thing to do as well. So for this, my loaves are about 1 kilo, and I've added 250 grams of pumpkin. So just going to fold that in there. It might be too much, I might do less next time, or I might need more. I might want it more pumpkiny. I'm hoping the end result will be a beautifully orange loaf with a bit of pumpkin flavour and some pumpkin seedy crunch, but who knows. So I'm just going to try and fold that in there. I'm sure everyone has very different folding techniques and stretching and folding, so you know, please do feel free to do your own thing. Just going to make sure that's in. The dough's feeling really nice at this point anyway. I find if you add things later, the dough doesn't really like to accept it as much, because it's sort of become its own fully formed person, and it's like, whoa, what are you trying to add in there? So I think this is a good time, or you can do it on the first fold. Okay, so that's looking good. So I'm going to leave that, put that last bit in. I'm going to leave that for half an hour and then come back and do my stretching and folding, but you just go ahead and follow whatever routine you usually go for. But I'm going to give it a few more stretches and folds. So we'll pop back later on. Toodles! Okay, so that's had a while. I've given it a couple of folds. It's looking nice and alive and bubbly. So I'm just going to give it another fold. I've started with wet hands, always helps. Yeah, it's feeling pretty good. I think the filling is pretty well distributed. So I'm just doing this so you can see. Give it a nice stretch and fold it over. And fold it over. Okay. I think when I come back in half an hour, we're going to be ready to do the shaping. I like to do a wet shape and a dry shape. That's not everyone's thing, but I'll show you both just in case you want the option. Okay, bye. Okay, so I'm going to do my first shape now. So So I'm going to take him out the bowl. And just have wet hands. At this point, if I was doing multiple loaves, I'd split them and weigh them. But I'm just doing this one guy. Now, some people like to do this with a dough scraper. I prefer the hands. And whenever I'm teaching any of my pastry babies, I always say have your feet in this one position, then your hands in the other, and then you swap them. Whoop. Whoop. But that doesn't work for everyone. It works for me. Because in this stage, I'm sure you know, you are creating your tension and shape in your loaf. So it's quite important, even though my hands are wet, the table is dry, so the dough has something to anchor onto. So I can see that's got quite a nice round shape. I don't want to move it too much, otherwise the surface is going to start to split. But I would say that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to leave that just resting on the bench and it should relax a bit, you know, feel a bit more at home out of its bowl, you know, it's becoming its own person. So we'll wait for that and then I'll come back and do the second shape, which is all the knitting. Okay? So my bread's feeling kind of relaxed now, it's kind of adjusted to the surroundings, it's kind of chilled, spread out a bit. So we're going to do our next shape. So I have a mixture of rice flour and just regular bread flour that I'm going to dust him with slightly. And then I'm going to use my scraper to flip him over. We don't want to get too much flour in his inside on the belly. So this is how I like to do my knitting shaping. Obviously there are hundreds of different techniques, so you know, do whatever you wish. But I like to stretch them out super long, and I fold the bottom out, and then wiggle to the side, wiggle, wiggle, and then we're folding like an envelope, so the top comes over, and then we make the little bunny ears, and then we've got to button up his duffel coat, so he's nice and snug and nice and tightly buttoned to go to sleep in his little basket. I've never really been taught by a baker, so what I might be saying, they might think I'm a complete lunatic, but it does work for me, so you know. And then we do the roly-poly. And there he is, looking lovely. And then I'm going to pop him into his floured basket. I'm going to leave it for a little moment on the bench to just think about what's just happened and get his bearings back. And then I'm going to plop him, so this side goes in like that, and make sure super tucked in, all ready, and then this guy is going to go in the fridge overnight, okay? And then we'll be back in the morning for baking. Okay, my bread baby. Hiya! So, it's the next day, and I baked my loaf this morning. Here it is. The worst thing I've ever seen. I think I had some technical issues in that the cast iron pot that I used was not quite big enough, so it's sort of done this slight edge thing and maybe looks a little bit like a pumpkin, so maybe that's good. But anyway, so I baked it off this morning, then went off for a hearty Cornish walk and a swim, and now I've come back and we're going to do the cutting in. So we'll see how it looks right across the middle. I mean, it feels very soft, which is good, I guess. And there it is. Oh, I'm actually quite happy with that. Yeah, so it's got lovely like orange bits, which is great. It's got some nice aeration. Yeah, not too shabby actually, I reckon, for a first attempt. Yeah, pretty happy. I'll have to see how it tastes. So, do go forth and give it a go with your autumnal pumpkins or anything else you fancy. Any questions or queries, do let me know. Yeah, doodles.